you guys were not. You were in. Actually, you were in our preseason.
I was in Portland as well.
I want to cover playoff hockey in Vancouver. I want the fans to enjoy and experience playoff hockey in Vancouver. I want the Canucks to win a Stanley Cup for this city. And looking at Raptors Twitter right now, a fade for Cade. I feel like a lot of them would love to see him there. I mean, I'm not advocating for that, but I mean, I know that's big on Raptors Twitter minds these days.
There's a lot of Twitter warriors out there.
LA gave one out to Jared Goff, and they've already moved on. Correct. They didn't think that could work for them.
It's all good. It's in it. It's in the box.
It's in the box.
Perfect.
For the Unnamed Sports Show, here's your host, Joshua Griffith.
Hello and welcome to the Unnamed Sports Show here on the Sports Talk Line, where we talk sports 24/7, 365. I'm, of course, your host, Joshua Griffith. And today on the show, we're going to be getting you ready for the National Hockey League season as the puck drops Tuesday, October 12th. We got a doubleheader. This sees the defending Stanley Cup champions, the Tampa Bay Lightning and the Pittsburgh Penguins. And then we have the newest franchise in the NHL, the Seattle Kraken, and the Las Vegas Golden Knights. But that's not going to be the focus of our conversation today, as I will be joined by Patrick Johnston of the Vancouver Sun and Vancouver Province. We're going to be talking all things Vancouver Canucks, and then we're going to get into some rugby. So if you're a big rugby fan, make sure to stay tuned for that. But before we get to the interview, we got to take care of some housekeeping. Make sure to like the video down at the bottom. Subscribe to the Sports Talk Line channel if you haven't already. Make sure to leave me a comment. Let me know what you think the Canucks are going to do this year. What do you think of their offense? What do you think of their defense? Maybe some gaps there. Hey, what do you think of their trade? Olli Levy, he's out of here now. Bye-bye, 5th round pick. Let me know what you think. Also, make sure to follow me on Twitter at Joshua Griffith0. And that pretty much takes care of that. So let's get right into this interview with Patrick Johnston, the Vancouver Sun and Province. All right, so I'm so thrilled to be joined here on the Unnamed Sports Show by Patrick Johnston of the Vancouver Province and Vancouver Sun, member of the Professional Hockey Writers Association. Patrick, thanks so much for joining me today, and a happy belated Thanksgiving to you.
Same to you, Josh. Great to be here, bud.
So if things get into full swing, the puck drops on the NHL season starting on Tuesday, October 12th, tonight for those who are listening today, and the Canucks get going on Wednesday. What are you most looking forward to this season? Canucks in general or just in general?
Honestly, I think it's part of that sort of big picture reality. I think we're all sort of, I imagine we're all sort of hoping for that things are slowly but surely getting to normal. I wrote a big story on the weekend about this. The Canucks themselves understanding that fans want to feel safe, but also know that that they themselves are a sign of sort of getting back towards what we want things to be in terms of our day-to-day lives. And so I think I went and covered I actually only ended up covering one of the preseason games at home. We didn't travel to the road games, and then my colleague Ben Kuzma had the other 2 games at home. Actually 3 games, I guess, because he had the one in Abbotsford as well. Just the way the schedule worked out. So there I was on Saturday night, watching a hockey game at Rogers Arena, but with fans, because of course last season, we were in the rink, but no fans, not even sitting in the press box. It was just such a different experience. And I think that more than anything, just that sort of taste of what we want life to be like coming back. I think just before we recorded this, Dr. Bonnie Henry was asked about, so when are we back to 100% at sports games? And she said, well, pretty soon. I mean, she didn't say it exactly, but pretty clear based on sort of her answer that that's something that's likely coming. That essentially her saying the intention was once we get to the double vax barrier on October 24th, that you need to be fully vaccinated to get into a place. They're always going to ship back. So anyway, I mean, it's just part of all this March. I mean, I think we still got to get through this winter a little bit. I was talking to someone who knows this kind of stuff. We got to get through this winter a little bit, but come sort of February, we'll be where we want to be. And I feel like hockey coming back, the Canucks coming back, a bit of travel involved perhaps. Those are all steps towards that. So it's sort of really a big picture excitement more than anything.
How was it covering the Canucks in an empty stadium? Because I know it was very weird and eerie being at BC Place doing the Whitecaps.
Yeah, cold. It was funny. I packed my bag up, my little backpack that I bring with my computer, and a couple other little things that I needed for the rink.
Cords, chargers.
I threw my toque in because I'd had that last year. Because it was cold. It was, and like a couple of us actually, we were kind of talking about, what it's like being back, and is it as cold? And it's not as cold because there's people in the building, and the way the kind of heating works in that building, it's based on the fact that normally, you'd expect there to be 15 to 18,000 people in there. So it was cold. A couple of us were wearing long johns at one point last year. Yeah, it was weird. It was weird. It was nice to be there. It gave you something to do, get out of the house. But, I think, realistically, we were still, this is pre-vaccine times. We didn't even have one jab yet. I think there were a couple of guys that got it right at the end of the season. I guess I did too, actually, because I got an AstraZeneca shot in April. But really, it was this strange existence. No crowd. You could hear the players. It was, obviously a season that was just circling the drain for a long time, unfortunately. And then of course they had COVID, and you had these last 3 games at the end of the season that just didn't matter. It was weird. It was a strange one for sure. I imagine very similar to what, would have been happening across the street at BC Place. I didn't end up covering a game under those circumstances, but, it was, it just not what, better than sitting at home watching the TV, but there was the other thing too, I think I realized, was that there was no kind of real sort of social aspect to it, which was hard. You were at work. We were all there to work. And how normally, you get a little bit of time around the edges, whether it's in an intermission or before or after the game, you kind of chit chat.
Yeah. And
we did, but, we were all there to work, and you were kind of there to get your job done, get out of there. And, so that part of it, especially like the pregame meal kind of thing, like there was no pregame meal.
I know.
You didn't sit around, right? You didn't sit around and sort of fill the space, if you will. So that didn't happen. We talked during the intermissions, but for the most part, it was talking about the team and talking about what's going on, which is fine. But it didn't, it wasn't any kind of substitute for, I think your normal routines. Even when you go to the office, like going to the newsroom, you're there, you're working, but you can't type for 7.5 hours a day. You get up and move around. And I think even like going to that game on Saturday night, it was just nice. There was a pregame meal, and there was just a little more, ebb and flow to what was going on, as opposed to everything being very sort of clinical and to the point. So that was nice.
Well, it's good. And then obviously, the Canucks start their season off with a big 6-game road trip. I would imagine that you'll be covering it remotely.
Yeah, we are not planning. We're not right now not been authorized to travel to the U.S., which is what it is. We're not actually. We could have gone to Edmonton, but I think we've sort of made the call. Let's just see how things are, and so we're not even doing that one. But yeah, we'll be on the road for some games. It'll be interesting to see sort of how things shake out. But of course, it's weird because, like, there's only Edmonton and Calgary that you're going to be, and I guess Winnipeg more than once. There's that East Coast. They're back east. I think it's 2 separate trips. They cover up Ottawa, Toronto, Montreal. I don't think those are until the new year. So, yeah, I mean, we're going to travel a bit. I actually asked if maybe I could go down to Seattle.
Of course,
for obvious reasons, but in the end, I think it's just, anyway, it is what it is. Unfortunately, I'm not gonna be able to go. So yeah, you're right. You're covering off TV, which is fine. But it was, this was the thing about, getting back to training camp, having access at the arena, because they're basically bringing them out. You mostly have done soccer, so you're kind of probably used to the system that the Canucks are using. But normally we go in the room and it's, there's the usual crowd of cameras that sort of swarm around a couple players. But if there's other guys, I mean, not every guy's in there. Some guys come through really fast. But if there's a guy there, you can go talk to him. And so we haven't quite had that yet, but still, they've been able to bring players out, do one-on-ones in the hallway, and just having the ability to have some personal interaction has reminded you sort of the value of that versus asking all your questions over Zoom. Because you just, it's an impersonal medium. Even if you're looking at each other on a camera, it's still, there's a formality, there's a barrier between us, and that makes it harder,
Yeah, and I mean, it's so valuable getting that one-on-one with the player and getting to talk to them and get the little stuff that's maybe, not going to go into your article, but find out how their day was going, or find out, a little bit something that you might not get from a Zoom question. Because, it's not like Faber and Quads, not everybody's going to ask about, Warzone and Call of Duty and stuff like that. So,
yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, no, it's just been good. It's been nice to, do that and whatever. But in the end, it'll, I think we'll see when it happens. But the true return to normal is when we're going on a trip, going to New York or wherever. So,
well, it gets back to a little bit of a sense of normal on Wednesday night when the Canucks start their season in Edmonton.
Mm-hmm.
What are you looking forward to about the season? Obviously, we get some moves. The Alex Chiasson getting signed today from his PTO. I guess not his PTO because he went to UFA. The Ole Levy trade.
Oh, just to be clear, when you're in a PTO, you're always a UFA. You could sign with anybody.
Oh, okay.
That doesn't bind you to the team, because it's literally an opportunity to practice. It's essentially, I think, a mechanism to sort of authorize the player to be there. It binds you in terms of, I suppose, insurance or something. But,
could somebody sign, say when Chiasson was doing his PTO and was in the preseason in camp for the Canucks, could somebody have offered him a contract?
Yeah, he could have ended up with St. Louis or whoever. Yeah, there have been cases of that in the past, I think. I can't think of anyone off the top of my head, of course, but every once in a while it happens. Like, the Canucks had oh my goodness.
Was it the guy from Nashville?
Well, no, a few years ago. I'm trying to think who it was. Drawing a blank. Anyway, they had a guy in camp on a PTO who ended up signing elsewhere.
Oh, okay. I'm slowly wading through the piece by piece.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember who it was. Anyway, yeah, so that happens. Anyway, yeah, Chiasson signing. I mean, part of it is just sort of the shaping out of your roster. He's fine.
You don't have much confidence in that one, Patrick.
Well, here's my thing. He had a couple decent years with Edmonton, but Edmonton wasn't that great.
He was racking up on the power play.
Yeah, but I think you or I might rack up some goals playing in Draisaitl. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not discounting the fact that, yes, he's clearly, has been an NHL caliber player, and that, well, I can't speak for you, but I can speak for myself. I'm nowhere near an NHL caliber player. But I think it's that sort of okay, fine. He's sort of like an acceptable choice. Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying that there were obvious alternatives out there, but I think hockey has a tendency at a certain point to overvalue the mere existence of NHL games played, as opposed to saying, is he still an NHL player? Does he add anything? I will stand by what I said. I'm still pretty sure Jonah Gadjevich isn't going to prove to be an NHL player. Most prospects don't. But the Canucks never really found that out. They I think had a feeling. There was you got the sense they had a feeling that certainly there were some people I think who wanted to see. This is inevitable. It's logical. It's not like that's a shocking thing. He got one game last year, basically didn't play, and then he got a couple preseason games, and he was fine. In the end, I would have kept him around. If it were up to me, I would have kept him around, especially if Chiasson's going to be on your fourth line. Like, what's the point? I guess, are you telling me Jonah Gadjevich couldn't score at the rate of, like, Alex Chiasson? You know what I mean? Like, there's just...
If you put him in the front of the net with Pettersson and and Besser and Miller on a and Hughes on a power play, yes, he's going to get 5 goals.
Yeah, and anyway, it's fine. It's not like this is signing. It's not like this is like overpaying Eric Goodbranson on a new contract or anything like that. You know what I mean?
That's true. We can look at that. We can take the positives. I like that it when the number came in.
The bar that it's clearing is not very high.
No, it's
but it clears the bar. Alex Chiasson's not going to hurt your team. He's not going to. This isn't a signing that turns you into contender or anything like that, though.
No. What do you just make of the overall Canucks team? Because I mean, obviously, improve their depth in forward, but the defense looks like take a step back. I mean, is it just going to be throw it to the wolves for Demko and Halak again this year, do you think?
Well, yeah. I mean, it's a lot of it's betting on Oliver-Ekman Larsson. I mean, this is something I think has been discussed on every podcast and or radio appearance and or streaming show. The reality is that they've made a big bet on a veteran defenseman who once was among the game's elite. We'll see if he can get back there. I'm not sure he can, just on the skating aspect, but that's one part of it. Quinn Hughes was very open about it when he talked to us on can't remember after the game on last week on Thursday. He sort of brought it up. He said, I need to be better. I just need to be better in all parts of my game. I need to be better defensively. There's things he worked on in the summer. He wants to be a better offensive player, which is kind of amazing to think about. But,
I'll take it, though. I'll take it.
You're hoping for you're hoping for improvement from him straight up. Obviously, they've got to figure out a partner. Tucker Pullman apparently is going to play with him. I'm not jumping out of my seats about Tucker Pullman. He is said to be a guy that plays the puck well, makes good decisions, not overly physical, not a hard head or anything like that. Bit of a Chris Tanev mold, but I don't think he's going to be anything like Chris Tanev. To be clear, it was time to move on from Chris Tanev, but that's the kind of guy that you need in your lineup. And I don't think Tucker Pullman's that guy. We'll see how this goes. Tyler Myers, I actually think is an interesting partner for Ekman Larsson. Myers isn't great defensively. He's a fun offensive player. I enjoy watching him play hockey when he has the puck. But from that standpoint, that's kind of the point of Ekman Larsson. So it could be interesting. That said, it's not a shutdown pair. It's not a pair that's going to, basically take the puck away from the other team's best players, but that's who they could find themselves playing against a lot. So that's an imperfect kind of pair there. Pullman, like Myers really should be on your third pairing. He's a guy that is fine in managed minutes, not 25 minutes a night. And then that third pair, Luke Schenn, good dude. Hits like a truck still, but foot speed was never really there. He has to play in the middle of the ice. So he needs a smart, capable partner. And, both Brad Hunt's got a long, sort of solid record behind him, but he's never been leaned on as the guy. And, so that's going to...
those NHL numbers you're talking about.
Yeah, right? There's enough to him that says that he's actually perfectly fine in the role he's been in. He is not a guy who simply has played enough NHL games, therefore it's proof that he's an NHL player. He's gonna be fine. I think he's a good little signing. He's a good little depth defenseman.
Can he play both sides?
Yes. Mostly he's a left side guy, but they have Kyle Burrows as their other right side defenseman right now, because of course Travis Hamonic isn't here and who knows where he is. It's just it's not an ideal lineup. The forwards are a lot more interesting to look at, but even then, they're dealing with an injury to Besser. We're not sure what it is, but I assume it's some sort of muscle issue. Whether it's a strain of some kind, whether it's from camp or one of the things that got mentioned at least once was that the ice in Abbotsford actually wasn't that great.
Okay.
So that might have been an issue. I don't know. He played obviously in the Beauty League in the summer. Maybe something happened there. I don't know. I don't think the Canucks are overly concerned about it, but as someone else pointed out, this is a team that said Travis Hamonic was going to be here, and 6 weeks later, 3 weeks later, he's not. So, and has been waived and technically assigned to Abbotsford. So, it's a team that I think will be more fun than last year's team. Just because they added Connor Garland. I think he's going to be a very fun addition to this team.
Yes.
So yeah, they'll be in the the division's not that great, so they'll be in the fight for the playoffs. Kind of have the Kraken at the top, and then some weird mix of the Canucks, Oilers, Flames, Kings, I think. And then who am I forgetting? Oh, there's a sixth team I always forget.
Sharks,
and Ducks aren't going to be that good.
I saw you had your prediction come out this morning for
that's right.
Vancouver Sun.
Yeah, that's up.
And you basically you had the Vegas above everyone else. I think which pretty much everyone else does. And
it's not like it's rocket science here.
Vegas,
Seattle. I think will be in the mix for the playoff fight. They're good. They'll be good defensively. I think they'll be a pretty solid team. I don't think they're going to be a very exciting team. They're not going to be sort of the second coming of Vegas or anything like that. But they know how to play from the goal out, which I think we know from soccer is important.
It's a very New York Islanders.
Yeah, that's actually not a bad
setup.
analogy. Yeah, I got Everly in there, of course, but yeah, no, that's not. They don't have a Barzell, right?
No.
Like they don't have a Barzell. But Vince Dunn, I think it's a big bet on Vince Dunn. Giordano has been a great player. You wonder how much more he has in the tank, but he's been a very good player.
Geeky's looked pretty good too.
Yeah, no, exactly. Like there's no. But I guess my point is that there's no out and out first line guys here.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot of good second line, like in terms of forward, a lot of kind of good second line kind of.
It's NHL. I was on I was doing the point shot hockey on last week with Sean and Bill there, and we were somehow we got on the Buffalo roster, and Sean was just saying, can you name any of the third or fourth line players? And he starts naming them. And we're like, who are these people?
Yeah,
and at least with Seattle, you can look and say, okay, that's an NHL player.
I'm going to do this right now because you're right. Like that is always a good exercise. Who is, and for a long time, actually, like this is when I was way younger, because I think he's a couple years older than me. But of all people, Ryan Johnson was one of these guys for me. Like I had no idea who Ryan Johnson was. And then I discovered he'd been in the league for like 5 or 6 years because he'd spent the first part of his career playing in Florida and Tampa, just teams you never paid attention to.
Yeah.
And it's the same kind of thing. But now we're in a 32 team league. And who's John Hayden? I don't know. I've heard of most of these guys. I am not in that camp, but it's not a great team. That's for sure. Actually, it's more like no. You know what? No, I've heard most of these guys. They don't qualify for me, but fair enough if fans don't know who they are. It's just in the end, like they did a decent job. I think the Kraken of finding kind of the base of their lineup, but they still need, they don't really have a top. Like their first line is going to be like Gord, Schwartz, and Eberle, which is fine, but that's not, like the Canucks' first line is better than that.
Oh yeah.
I'm not
sure. I mean, the Canucks second line probably matches up pretty well with
close. Well, it depends on who you're calling. How you're lining those guys up. It's a comparable. Like that would be a good second line for the Canucks, right? They just don't have a ton. They I think have some potential defensively. Adam Larsson is a nifty player. He's not amazing. He's not Taylor Hall quality, but he's a good. He's a good enough player. Susie, I'm not a big fan of. Some people like Fleury a lot. I'm not a big fan of. Their bottom pair is going to be not great. Jerry Lee Lauzon, I think, had some fans in Boston, but it's a team that's. They're also absorbing the reality of having got 5 guys on the COVID list right now.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, and nobody's really thought about this, but Yarncroke played against the Canucks last week, right? Like that, I think they dodged a bit of a bullet there. And
testing all came back negative with the team.
Well, Yarncroke tested as we understand it, or we're guessing it because they've only said protocol, which is fine. Yeah. But presumably Yarncroke tested positive on Friday, and so sort of give or take, he probably was in the early stages of his infectious curve when they played the Canucks. So the Canucks may have dodged a bullet there. Not that
Yeah.
and nobody's really mentioned it, and I haven't really. It only hit me yesterday once these other guys were positive. Because that's
do the timeline.
Yeah. I mean, this is the thing. This is going to happen. Everybody, if you're vaccinated, you could get sick. Like, that's fine. That's kind of how it works. Like the idea of breakthrough, the breakthrough transmission is like a bad term because it makes it misunderstands what vaccines are for. The vaccines are to make you less sick. They're not to make you, you're not going to get full immunity. So hopefully this doesn't spread beyond that for the Kraken, and they don't have to have any sort of moves on. I see Nathan McKinnon's
I was just gonna say Nathan
but
McKinnon.
it sounds like I saw Friedman had a kind of rejig of things. He originally said he's going to miss 2 games, but he said right now he's definitely missing Wednesday, but they're not sure what's going to happen because I think it's one of those ones that's like you're vaccinated, so the sort of science on all this changes. You're still you still may be infectious, but at a certain point you can test out of it. There's a way to test out of it once you figure out if they're asymptomatic.
And it's at least
without boring the listeners, there's I especially last year when I was dealing with the Canucks and their outbreak, you're trying to understand quarantine and stuff like that, and they use a lot of the CDC sort of guidance. And there's some really interesting like science stuff on the science behind the sort of the testing strategies and stuff they're allowed to use and things like that. So that'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
Well, I would imagine that goes back to your teaching days as well, wanting to inform everyone.
I guess I'm just trying to do my job, Josh. I mean, I think the lesson here is if you're not doing research as a journalist, I don't know what the hell you're doing.
Okay, well, I did my research, and I'm joined here by Patrick Johnston of the Vancouver Sun and Vancouver Province, and I couldn't have you on without talking some rugby with you today.
Oh yeah, oh God, okay.
Okay, so do you want to go good or bad?
Let's go. It's all good. It's all bad.
Wow. We got some specific bad and we got some specific good that I'm kind of looking forward to down the line. So we'll start with the specific good. How excited are you that Rugby Sevens are back in full swing? We'll be getting going again in March at BC Place.
February.
February.
Yeah, late February. Yeah. It's great. It's good to see. In the end, it was one of those ones where it was sort of funny. They ran the 2021 World Series, which was just 2 Canada Sevens events last month, and it was fine. It was fun. It was a very kind of watered down series. They didn't have obviously most of the big teams, but the events went well. The Canada Sevens fans were entertained. They tried the Edmonton thing out, sort of the standalone event. Sounds like it went all right. Yeah, and they've now, I guess, this morning announced the full schedule for next year, which starts actually in Dubai in late November. So 2 weekends in a row in Dubai, and then as was suggested to me, and I briefly reported, but I'm sure nobody cared because fair enough. 2 stops in Spain in January, which would be nice. As I joked to the World Rugby guys I was talking to them, I'm like, oh, maybe I'll finally convince my wife to do one of these, but that won't happen. Candace it won't happen.
Hey, that's if you're gonna pick one to go to, there you go.
I know. Spain in January, that'd be pretty good, I think, actually. Anyway, and then US and Canada, Hong Kong, Singapore, and then Paris and London. And then the women, they've got a women's stop again in Langford, and I think I'm trying to remember, there's a stop I'm forgetting. Glendale. I think they're going to Glendale for the women's US Sevens, but it should be good. Yeah, it should be, it's fun. It's nice to have that back. It's such a good event. People have so much fun, and the athletes are fun, and maybe we'll get to talk to them in person this time around.
That would be good. I mean, I know it's disappointing because I know Australia is getting hit, they're having their big tournament, and a lot of teams, England's not going, New Zealand, I don't think is going, a whole bunch of teams aren't going just with the COVID restrictions. So, it's just a shame for the rugby fans that are out there. And we'll
see. I mean, I think I would imagine for the next series, like for when the series launches again, that we'll have the big teams back. Yeah. It's been a challenge. It was a challenge getting it happen this time. But yeah, just because everything in Australia and New Zealand, I mean, they're completely shifting how they're living now. They're trying to get their vaccinations started out.
And you're even seeing little things. I mean, we're seeing it with the Canada men's soccer team with just some of the players from Europe not being able to make the trip down to Mexico just because of the quarantine periods and stuff. So we're almost out of it, but like, we talked about at the beginning, we're getting there to that some sense of normalcy.
Right.
And the bad, a couple of days ago, obviously.
Yeah.
Rugby
we won't
Canada.
get too far into it because,
Yeah, I won't paint.
I'm
I won't
going to write
paint.
something about this. I've ended up, obviously talked to a lot of people involved. It's immensely upsetting. The Men's World Cup, Men's National 15s is not going to the Rugby World Cup for the first time ever. Completely crashed out. They started with this hopeful, exciting win over the U.S. in St. John's, and then just kind of circled the drain after that and beat Chile at home, but barely. And then just, I didn't watch the game. I only sort of caught clips of it. But, lost to Chile for the first time ever and lost by enough that they lost out on aggregate, and now they're out. They're just straight up out. And it's a really, while we talk about how great the Canada Sevens are going, for Rugby Canada, it's a very bad time. They're there's a lot of questions to be asked about how the organization's been led, decisions that have happened. There is, of course, some, you have to allow for some of the circumstance, like COVID. COVID made things really hard, but this was an organization that's been walking the line financially for quite a while. I'm not here to say that you should have just sold more sponsorships, because that's not the solution. They needed to make better decisions with what little money they had. And, I tweeted about this a little bit on the weekend, but going back 7 years now, almost, a collection of very bad, or series of very bad hiring decisions at some really key decision-making levels. And then, hired a guy named Jim Dixon, who was not a good hire, wasn't right for the job. Think that was going into the 2015 World Cup, came out of the 2015 World Cup not in a strong position. They came in, they went into that, and it's one of those ones. There's a what if they hadn't what if they managed to beat Italy? They almost beat Italy. What if they hadn't blown it against Romania? Those two wins put them into a different level of qualifying, keep them in sort of touch with the tier 1 nations, get them more tours, get them more money, yada yada yada. Well, anyway, they missed out on that. Ended up letting Kieran Crowley go, which, I think Crowley had been around for a while, but he was committed to the program, had been pushing for some ideas that they never wanted to pay for. And then, basically Dixon hired the wrong coach, Mark Anscombe, who was a disaster for a whole bunch of reasons, didn't want to do the job, wasn't really actually that good of a coach. Basically had a split with the players, got rid of him after they didn't qualify in the first round of qualifying for the World Cup. Hired Kingsley Jones, who I think Kingsley's a personable guy, good guy, but really put him behind the 8 ball. And in the meantime, also got rid of Dixon, finally, after some really bad decisions and bad leadership, and then made I think in the end just kept kind of people internally and didn't actually find anybody new, and just kind of hummed along, shouldn't say hum along, just kind of kept stumbling along. And it's a tough job, like there's no doubt about it. It's a tough job, it's a tough place to be. You need someone who's realistic, who's able to sort of think outside the box, who's able to lead and deal with 4 different programs pulling in 4 different directions, who have 4 very different sort of personalities and cultures. You need to find some unifying sense of that. And then everything comes back to me that I hear is just, it all comes down to a lack of sort of cohesion in staff and sort of common vision for what they're doing. And then when you look outwardly, nothing they projects confidence. And so as a result, all of kind of the members, the fans, even the players, everything's sour. And when everything's sour, you're in a really bad place. And that, especially, and the last thing you need when you're up against it is everyone being up against you. And so there's whatever happens next, I think they're in huge financial trouble. Whatever happens next, they so desperately need to find a way to reconnect, engage with people, and have it become a common cause again. It's a real mess, and it's not going to be. There are no easy solutions in this one. It's only going to be ugly, and it's only going to be difficult.
Yeah, and I mean, then something that I wrote down when you were talking there was funding. Was and it sucks. Everybody loves the rugby sevens, and it's I talked to a lot of Olympic hopeful athletes and stuff, and it's the same for them. It's like, yeah, hey, cheer for us every 4 years. I remember when Toronto's team was overseas and they were doing the
Wolfpack.
Yeah, the Wolfpack was, and rugby was being crammed down my throat sports, and it was perfect. I loved it. But now it's like, when do I hear about rugby?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Unless I'm looking for it, I don't hear about it. Maybe Don Andrews or you or a couple other people.
Yeah. But you need to get it in front of you. No, you're totally right. And that's been the magic of the sevens, is it puts people, it puts it in front of people. And it's also nice that it's like one of those ones where, like, I obviously follow the series and I pay attention and I kind of care what happens week to week. Most people don't do that, and that's fine.
I'm a little bit more. I watch a little bit more. NRL in Australia.
Right. So right. Okay, that's good. I mean, that's and one of the things that the irony. This is actually funny you mentioned that. So the irony in all this is that you actually have sports that seems to be showing some interest.
You can watch more Australian rugby than you can Canadian rugby.
I more mean in general. Like there is actually more rugby again that's accessible on a weekly basis, whether it's rugby league or rugby union, than ever before. That on sort of reasonably easy to get television. Yeah. And yet, it is the most desperate time right now for Canadian men's rugby. It's going to be really, it's a difficult period, and the kids want to play sevens. Like, this is the thing that whoever comes in next, however it's in charge, they need to accept this, because there's a lot of old farts involved in Canadian rugby who just want to talk about glory days of 30 years ago, don't understand the realities on the ground, don't understand how professionalism has literally changed the landscape, and don't care to pay any attention to what the kids want to do. Yeah. And the BC men's rugby, BC men's club leagues finally got restructured this year for the first time in 23 years. Finally, a change that had been asked for probably 10 to 15 years ago. Players saying there was simply too much rugby, and especially for a sport that's still, that at this level is amateur. Like, you can't burn. They were burning players out. So hopefully that makes a difference. But in the end, it's going to be, it's going to be 6 years, 5 or 6 years now before they get a chance to qualify for the Rugby World Cup again. So that's a long time to be in the wilderness, to have no money coming to you, to have to actually figure out, like, guys that there's only a handful of guys now playing in Europe, but guys that are playing in Europe are going to be like, I'm not going to go play in these games.
You're going to see some of the stuff that we were getting for Canada basketball.
No, or the, really to go to the soccer team, right? Think about how difficult things were, 10, even 5 years ago. You're right. Canada basketball, like all other national teams have run its role. Rugby Canada's never run into this ball. Maybe well down the pecking order on sort of national sports priorities, but they've always consistently been able to pull their best guys. Yeah. And that's not the case. Certainly hasn't been the case, and it's definitely not going to be the case going forward.
Well, hopefully it can turn around. And if you're a big rugby fan, get out there, support your local rugby team, support the rugby sevens, support Canada's national team. It's a really fun sport to watch. If you're a fan of football, you're going to enjoy rugby.
Yeah, that's for sure.
So Patrick, well over the allotted time that I asked you to join me for, of course, but couldn't have you on without chatting some rugby.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you so much.
Everyone's tuned out by now.
Everybody's tuned. That's fine. I really enjoyed it, and I doubt they did. And if they did, then they're missing out on some rugby. So I'll make sure to jam it down their throats.
All right, buddy.
Thanks so much. And like I said, you had your great article about the Pacific Division.
Yeah.
What else are you working on?
I've got a good one. I think it's probably Wednesday, Thursday. I had a really good chat with Bo Horvat last week about
awesome.
Leadership and his sort of willingness to become an advocate. Not necessarily something that hockey players are inclined to do.
No.
But he thought he had some really interesting thoughts about sort of his own journey, who he is, who he wants to be, on the ice and off the ice.
Oh, that's awesome. Oh,
Yeah.
I look forward to reading that. So thank you very much for joining me, and have a great rest of your week. Look forward to the
Take care,
hockey season starting.
All right.
All right. So that was such a blast to talk with Patrick Johnston. We went a little bit longer than I thought we would, but that's okay because great NHL talk and then some great unexpected rugby talk. So make sure to get out there and support your local rugby clubs, whether it be rugby sevens, just one in your neighborhood, or it's the Canada national rugby team. Canucks get their season underway on October 13th, Wednesday in Edmonton against the Oilers. Make sure to tune into that and then tune in next week for more of the Sports Talkline Show. For your host, I have been Joshua Griffith. This has been the Sports Talkline Network, where we talk sports 24/7, 365. And until next time, remember to love sports, all sports.